You noticed it a few weeks ago, the same squirrel, same time of morning, same spot on the fence or the step or just outside the kitchen window, and at some point you stopped rushing past it. You started watching it back. Maybe you even gave it a name. And then one day it looked directly at you. Not through you, not past you, at you. And something in that moment felt like more than coincidence. You were right, it was. Welcome to the Squirrel Next Door. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because what you're about to learn will change the way you see every squirrel that visits your yard. Today we're going to cover 7 things that happen when a squirrel keeps returning to you, what each one means, what science actually says about it, and why the squirrel that comes back to your yard every day is doing something far more deliberate than most people ever realize. Stay all the way through, because sign number 5 is the one that stops people in their tracks. It's the one that, once you know it, you'll never be able to unsee. Let's begin. Sign 1. It has mapped your routine. The squirrel that returns to your yard every day is not doing so by accident. Squirrels have what researchers call episodic-like memory, the ability to remember not just where things are, but when things happen. Studies published in the journal Animal Cognition have shown that squirrels track time with remarkable precision. They remember which caches they visited and when. They adjust their foraging behavior based on what they expect to find at different times of day. What this means for you is this: if a squirrel appears at the same time every morning, it is not coincidence, and it is not habit in the mindless sense. It has built a mental model of your routine. It knows when you come outside. It knows when the feeder gets filled. It knows your schedule, possibly better than your neighbors do. The squirrel that waits for you has decided you are a reliable part of its world. That is not a small thing. Think about the time of day it tends to appear. Is it consistent? That consistency is not random. Sign 2. It has assessed you and decided you are safe. Squirrels are prey animals. Everything in their biology is built around threat detection. Their eyes are positioned on the sides of their head to give them nearly 360 degrees of vision. They can detect movement at extraordinary distances, and their default response to anything unfamiliar is to flee, which makes what happens with a returning squirrel all the more significant. When a squirrel stops fleeing from you, when it holds its ground as you approach, when it continues eating rather than bolting, when it lets you get within a few feet without alarm, it is not being reckless. It has made a calculated decision based on repeated observation of your behavior, that you do not represent a threat. Research from the University of Exeter found that urban squirrels actively calibrate their flight initiation distance, the point at which they decide to run, based on individual human behavior. Squirrels who have had repeated calm, non-threatening interactions with a specific person will allow that person to get significantly closer than a stranger. The squirrel that stays when you appear has not simply got used to humans in general. It has got used to you, specifically. It has watched you long enough to know you won't lunge, won't chase, won't make sudden movements. You have been assessed and cleared. Most people never know this is happening. The squirrel's evaluation of you has been going on since the first day it spotted you. Sign 3, it remembers your face. This is the detail that surprises people most. Squirrels can recognize individual human faces. Studies on squirrel cognition, including research conducted at Princeton University, have confirmed that squirrels use visual cues to distinguish between individual humans. They are not responding to a category called person. They are responding to you, the specific individual whose face they have learned to associate with safety, or with food, or with the quiet that comes before the seed appears on the step. The squirrel that comes back to your yard is not coming back to your yard. It is coming back to you. If you moved to a different house and started feeding it there, the research strongly suggests it would follow the same pattern. The trust is attached to you, not the location. The next time it looks at you, understand what is actually happening. It is not just looking in your direction, it is looking at your face. It knows it. Sign 4, it has brought you into its trust network. Squirrels are not purely solitary. They communicate. Research on eastern gray squirrels, the most common backyard squirrel across the UK and North America, has documented that squirrels observe each other's behavior toward humans and update their own responses accordingly. A squirrel that watches another squirrel feed calmly near a person will approach that person with measurably less caution than one encountering them for the first time. What this means is that the squirrel coming to your yard has not kept you a secret. Other squirrels in your neighborhood know about you. They know whether you are someone who can be approached. Your reputation in your local squirrel community, for want of a better phrase, is already established. The squirrel at your fence is in some sense vouching for you to every other squirrel watching from the tree line. You have become a known quantity in a small wild world you didn't know it was paying attention. Sign 5. It is hiding things from other squirrels when you are present. I told you to stay for this one. Squirrels are among the very few animals in the world that practice deliberate deception. It's called deceptive caching. When a squirrel suspects it is being watched by another squirrel, a potential thief, it will perform a false bury. It digs a hole. It makes the motions of placing food. It covers the hole, and then it moves elsewhere and buries the food for real. The entire performance is a deliberate misdirection designed to mislead a specific observer. Research published in Animal Behavior confirmed that squirrels perform significantly more deceptive caches when they know they are being watched. They are not doing this by instinct. They are doing it because they understand that another mind is observing them, and they are acting to deceive that mind. Here is where it becomes extraordinary. When a squirrel that has bonded with a human is watched by that human, researchers have noted it does not perform the deceptive cache. It buries real food in the real location, without the false dig first. The working interpretation is that the squirrel distinguishes between observers it trusts and observers it doesn't. It is willing to let you, specifically you, see where the real food goes. You are inside its circle of trust in a way that most living things around it are not. Sign 6. It returns during hard seasons, January, February, the depths of winter when the ground is frozen and natural food is at its scarcest. The squirrel that returns to your yard in the hardest months of the year is making a statement that is easy to miss if you're not looking for it. A squirrel has hundreds of potential foraging locations in its territory. In winter, when survival depends on every calorie, it cannot afford to waste energy on places that aren't reliable. The locations it returns to in February are not the same ones it tried once in September. They are the ones it has verified, over months of consistent experience, are worth the journey. Your yard made that list. You made that list. When a squirrel appears at your window on a January morning, hunched against the cold, it is not there by chance. It is there because over time it built a picture of you as someone who shows up, who keeps the feeder filled, who can be counted on. In the mathematics of winter survival, you became a known quantity worth returning to. That kind of reliability means something, even in a small wildlife. Sign 7. It has given you something you didn't ask for. Most people who feed squirrels think of themselves as suppliers. Seed goes out, squirrel appears, transaction complete. But that is not what is happening. Research on human-animal bonds, including work from the University of Exeter and the broader field of anthrozoology, has consistently found that repeated, calm, non-transactional contact between a human and a wild animal produces measurable changes in the animal's behavior toward that specific human, not toward humans in general, toward that one person. The squirrel that keeps coming back has extended something to you that it extends to almost nothing else in its environment. It has extended tolerance, familiarity, a version of trust built on the specific, accumulated evidence of who you have been in its presence across dozens or hundreds of mornings. You didn't ask for it. You probably didn't realize it was being given. But it was. The squirrel next door has been watching you longer than you've been watching it. And somewhere along the way, without ceremony, without announcement, it decided you were worth coming back to. I want to say something directly before we close. If you've watched this far, you probably already have a squirrel in mind. A specific one that has been showing up in your life with a consistency that you noticed before you had words for it. You are not being sentimental. You are not projecting. The relationship you sense is real. It is just quieter and stranger and more scientifically grounded than most people know. A wild animal has looked at you across the distance between its world and yours and decided based on everything it observed that you are safe, that you are worth returning to, that you specifically are part of the landscape of its life. That is not nothing. In fact, I would argue it is something quite rare. If you want to deepen the relationship with the squirrel that visits your yard, the basics are simple. Unsalted sunflower seeds, whole peanuts in the shell, and fresh water placed consistently in the same spot at the same time each day. Squirrels respond to routine more than almost anything else. Move slowly near them. Don't approach, let them approach you. Speak calmly if you speak at all, and give it time. Trust in a prey animal is built over dozens of interactions, not a handful. In the next video, we're going to look at something that changes how most people think about squirrels entirely. The science of what's happening inside your squirrel's brain when it decides to share its real hiding spots with you. It's stranger and more moving than you'd expect. I want to hear from you. Is there a squirrel that keeps coming back to your yard? One that has its own name, its own spot, its own time of day? Tell me about it in the comments. How long has it been coming back? Was there a moment when you first noticed it was returning specifically to you? Those stories matter more than most people realize. And the community gathering around this channel is one of the most quietly observant I've ever encountered. If this video moved you, share it with someone who has a feeder, or a garden, or a small wild visitor they've never quite been able to explain. That's how these stories reach the people who need them. I'll see you in the next one.